So why don't we get on to something a little less depressing than
No, let's get on to
natural
Tom Baker
disasters.
instead.
Yeah, well, I mean, so he's a little depressing sometimes.
He
but
owns
he's
his
also
own
fun sometimes.
tombstone.
Well, it's good to be prepared.
That's Boy Scouts taken to a whole new level, right?
Right. Well, hello, fellow Whovians.
Hello.
Welcome to another episode of 3 Do Who, the Doctor Who podcast where we discuss all things Doctor Who related. You may notice a new face in this episode. Mike is on his vacation right now, and sitting in for him is James's wonderful husband, Alex. How are you two tonight?
Right, before we do, Alex, what is your official title?
What doctor?
Yeah, we have a doctor as our co-host.
Oh my goodness. Well,
we're fine.
as Tom would say, though, he may be a doctor, but he's not the doctor.
I can't speak for Alex because he's in the other room, but yeah, I'm fine.
How are you, Alex?
Yeah, I'm good. Yeah.
Good. It's wonderful to see you.
You too.
Hopefully this will be a more regular thing when Mike decides to take off to parts unknown.
Are we talking parts unknown upwards or downwards with Mike?
I have no idea because he just put undisclosed location on his calendar for the last week.
Okay, grassy knoll then. Right.
Who knows? So speaking of who knows, let's go on to Who News. The only thing I found of noteworthiness this cycle is that the 15th Doctor Sonic is now available for sale. That's right. Following the release at SDCC, which is San Diego Comic-Con for those not in the US, the 15th Doctor Sonic shoe, I mean screwdriver. Seriously, it looks a bit like a shoe.
Stop anticipating my questions.
Right. Maxwell Smart would loved it.
Yeah.
That's my opinion. It really does look like a little shoe. But the deluxe edition is available to purchase for £39.99 from Character Options. The deluxe version features an electroplated finish that replicates the brass and steel look of the prop. A standard edition is available for pre-order and will have a painted finish and presumably a lower price. And that's all the Who News I have. Did you dig up anything, James?
I actually, before we get into other news, you've kind of anticipated it. What do you both think of that sonic screwdriver?
I think it's a lovely prop. It doesn't look like a screwdriver. It looks more like a shoe.
Yeah.
Alex, dare I ask what you think it looks like?
I don't know what it looks like, but it doesn't look like a screwdriver.
It kind of also is resembling a birth control pill case.
How do you know about those?
I have a sister.
Oh, okay, fair dues. Right.
Yes.
Yeah, we are in the slow news cycle.
Yeah.
There's been very little about the Christmas special. I
saw like one tiny article about it, and it really didn't have anything to say.
It's called Joy to the World, and apparently it's going to look at what the Doctor gets up to when he isn't lumbered with a companion. There is a Silurian in the clip. They seem to have had yet another redesign. Going to be interesting to see how it looks on screen. But yeah,
maybe they're an offshoot of the Silurian.
Yes, it is the slow cycle. There's been very little about the next season yet. We've got season 25 of the Classic Years coming out. It's been delayed in the UK. It's going to be out end of October now. Okay. And yeah, everything has kind of really massively gone into an unexpected lull.
Yeah, it's a little bit more than I remember from previous years. I don't know if it's just that RTD is actually managing to keep secrets well this Christmas season, but usually by October we've had some pretty good hints and drops.
Yeah, I think after he's put his foot in it so much over the last year with his comments, people might be gagging him a bit. Because bearing in mind that he was the one that redesigned the sonic screwdriver because the original looked too much like a gun.
No, it looked like a screwdriver or a pen light.
Yeah.
It really didn't look like a gun to me
That's
at
what
all.
that's
None of them have.
that was what his justification for redesigning it was.
Yeah. Well, I mean,
the only other bits I've seen are the book written by Bonnie Langford is now out.
oh yay.
And next on that list is a book written by Janet Fielding.
Okay.
Mm.
Excellent.
I'm definitely looking forward to hearing the talking book of that. It'll be interesting to hear Janet's take on different characters. If you've ever heard Peter Davison doing a talking book featuring Tegan, you will know that Janet Fielding has got a lot of payback to do.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
I'm just wondering whether the Silurian redesign is going to sort of tie in with this spin-off that was announced.
Oh,
the war between land
that is
and the
possible.
That's going to be interesting, because trying to kind of, again, they're actually keeping that really under wraps, which is surprising.
Yeah.
But everyone is saying, well, we kind of know that the Silurians and Sea Devils won't be living in peace and harmony with humans at the end of it, because they never do.
Right.
So yeah, I hadn't twigged that, actually. Yeah. We know it's UNIT. More of whom
Kate's
later. Yeah. And I'm trying to think. I'm having terrible brain fog at the moment. Alex, you're not supposed to subtly nod in agreement to that.
You missed, because you were watching him, you missed me subtly.
Yeah.
But that's, in my case, I have brain fog just because I work too much.
Yeah.
So,
but yeah, I say the only big release you've got coming out that we know of is season 25. The next animation hasn't even been hinted at yet. The Janet Fielding book is the only kind of big unexpected one that's coming out. It does seem to have gone quite quiet.
Yeah, more so, like I said, than other years. So,
but we do have 61 years worth of Doctor Who, most of which is behind us. Right, literally, right. In my case.
Yeah, I mean, there is no shortage of things to go back and rewatch, or new things to discover that you missed the first go round.
And hopefully, between Alex and myself, there will be quite a lot of suggestions for things to go back or go and find out.
Nice.
I might even wander into rumor territory, which will kind of cover another product that's coming up soon.
Yay. All right. So should we crack on and get...
yes, because he's 91 years old. He hasn't got much longer, so we better speed through this.
No, we better hurry. So this episode, as you may have guessed by the title, is all about my favorite Doctor, the Fourth Doctor, played by the one and only Tom Baker. And I have met Mr. Baker, thanks to James, and also have a signed copy of his book, The Boy Who Kicked Pigs, again, thanks to James, and several autographs, thanks to James.
Are you noticing a trend, Alex?
Yeah. James got me a lot of Tom Baker stuff over the years.
Now, don't forget the really important thing I've got you.
Oh, what's that?
Jelly babies.
Oh, that's true. You've got me hooked on jelly babies, and now I have to order them through Amazon and hope that I get a fresh batch, because there is no place here that sells them anymore.
Anyway, on with Tom.
On with Tom. So, with a curly mop top of hair and sporting a glorious long scarf and a fedora, the Fourth Doctor's personality was best described as bohemian, brooding, sometimes rude, while at the next moment childlike and cheeky. This incarnation of the Doctor had an extreme dislike for authority figures. He really just wanted to be left alone to wander through space and time so that he wouldn't have to be responsible for anyone. But alas, he kept getting drawn into missions for the Brigadier, the Time Lords, and the White Guardian. The Fourth Doctor saw all sapient species as friends and family, and would go against all odds to keep even his enemies from harm. Which was kind of, it's kind of a theme going through most of the Doctors. He delighted in keeping his friends and foes alike off balance with his quirky humor and antics, and was not above playing the fool to lull his opponents into underestimating him. While the Fourth Doctor was generally considered kind and peace-loving, he also reacted with explosive fury when he was pushed too far, as can be seen in several episodes.
And behind the scenes.
And behind the scenes, too. Yeah, that Tom was a little volcanic at times. So, like many of his incarnations, the Fourth Doctor hated goodbyes and preferred to slip away unnoticed to avoid them. Also of note, he hated bow ties. Take that, Matt Smith. And we all know that he absolutely loved jelly babies. And who can blame him? They're delicious. So the Fourth Doctor was and is portrayed by Tom Baker. I say is because he is still kind of working as the Fourth Doctor from time to time. He was born in January of 1934 in Liverpool. His father, John Stuart Baker, was a sailor who was rarely at home, resulting in Tom being raised largely by his mother, Mary Jane, in her Catholic faith. Oof. I was Catholic, so I feel for him. He left school at 15 to become a novice monk and remained in monastic life for 6 years, which is about, 6 longer than I would have.
Let's face it, you could replace that with minutes and that would still be longer than you
6 minutes would have probably been too long for me. He then left to go into the Merchant Navy, at the same time taking up acting. In 1971, he got his first big break playing Rasputin in the film Nicholas and Alexandra, which also starred Michael Jaston, who later played the Valeyard. In other early roles for Tom Baker, it included Lynch in The Mutations, Jenkin in The Miller's Tale segment of Canterbury Tales, and Dr. Ahmad El Kabir in BBC television version of The Millionaires, co-starring Maggie Smith, who sadly passed last month. And Alex, as our guest host, it's your job to give us your own personal highs and lows from Tom's 7-year run.
Okay.
And of course, any companions or guest stars you think people should look out for.
Okay. So yeah, I've been thinking about this. It's difficult. I mean, the Tom era in general is very strong.
Yeah.
So choosing favourites is very difficult. So what I've been thinking about is sort of favourites in sort of different categories, I suppose. And my first favourite is Robots of Death, I think. That's probably my top.
Yeah. That's a good episode.
It's just got everything. The acting, the production, the sets, everything is just top notch.
I heard a cry.
It was me. So I was kind of thinking there's sort of the darker drama kind of category. I think it's more of the one my favourites seem to fall into that category. Although so things like Horror, Fang Rock, Image of the Fendal, and
Good
Pyramids of Mars, they're all kind of the slightly darker, maybe verging on the gothic in places. That's probably my favourites of Tom.
I mean, Tom was at times the most colourful goth I've ever seen.
True.
And again, he owns his own tombstone. What other goth can claim that?
I expect some of them can.
Yes.
Probably, yeah.
So then I was thinking about like what your sort of standard Toms. They're sort of not really silly. They're not really dark. They're just sort of the standard. When I say standard, that's not a bad thing. But things like I love Seeds of Doom, and like The Hand of Fear, which although we lose Sarah in that one, and it's the ending,
which is my favorite companion that we will not talk about because I get teary-eyed about it.
Okay,
I'm going to cross off half the stuff that I've got coming up. That's gonna.
Well, no, I can't talk about it. You can talk about it.
No, I mean, she is my favorite.
I'll just get choked
She
up.
is my favorite companion from the classic series, definitely.
Oh yeah.
So
Ark in Space, where Tom's yelling at her, is probably one of my favorite things.
So, and then following on with Sarah again, you've got Android Invasion, and then the couple of regulars, I suppose, that are often named is like Genesis of the Daleks and City of Death, which I do really like. I think I'm just sort of, I'm not as keen to rewatch them just because I think they have been rewatched a lot, and as some of the others. And then I've got a couple of ones that if you're in more silly mood, So think like Creature from the Pit and Nightmare of Eden, which, although silly, is actually quite dark.
Right.
It's a comic story about drug addiction.
Yeah, exactly. That's what I mean. It's a comedy, but
and Creature from the Pit is about an inappropriate prop that you got to blow to communicate with.
Does it have 3 settings?
It had settings removed between episodes when the production team realised how bad it looked.
Yeah, exactly. It suddenly lost something.
Obviously went to the vet between episodes.
Yeah. And then, a special mention, I suppose, goes to the Key to Time season. I've always been very fond of it. I love the kind of quest type sort of stories.
Yeah, it was a very almost video game type story arc. So I love that arc. That was a really good one.
Yeah. So, I'm very fond of that arc. And although, I know some people don't think Armageddon Factor is the strongest of the stories, I'm actually very fond of it.
I think the problem with Armageddon Factor is because of the way seasons were filmed. The last story to be filmed, the last one of the season, they had run out of budget. Whereas these days they film completely out of order, so they can kind of blow the budget on the finale by filming it first.
Yeah.
True.
Well, I mean, it is still early days of television. And, I mean, fairly early days still.
I think teenage years at least.
Yeah. I mean, that's still very early on in television production. And television didn't get the budget that large movies got. And, it's just really hard to when you're first still starting out to figure out how to pace things and keep your budget in line.
Well, it didn't help that a 25-minute episode of science fiction was given the same budget because of the way the BBC worked as a 25-minute episode of a soap opera.
Right.
Basically, drama is this much per minute.
Right.
Doesn't matter what the drama is.
Yeah, a soap opera has almost no expenses in sets and stuff. So it's really kind of the early years of Doctor Who especially are very rough just because they didn't get the budget that other shows would have gotten.
Yeah, and I think, well, it's a miracle that they were able to make what they did make, I think.
Yeah, definitely.
I said the other thing that, because I've been doing some research for a blog article I'm writing, the other thing that kind of I hadn't twigged was just how tight you had to get the episode durations.
Yeah.
I mean, in the 80s, basically, I would say 95% of the episodes are between 24 minutes and 0 seconds and 24 minutes and 59 seconds.
Right.
The last one to break the 25-minute mark was 1984 with the Twin Dilemma. It's just, So, you have to kind of, that's the window you've got, and you have to fill it.
Well, like I said, I know you guys do the commercial segments, after and before shows. So you're not like we are over
the
here
BBC
where they just
anyway.
break in. Yeah, the BBC.
We don't mention the opposition.
But I mean, it's like when I worked in a television station, you were very strict on the commercial playback. It had to be traffic. The traffic is the the programs coming in order and the commercials playing in order, and it has to be like to the second, because if you cut off a bit of the show, the viewers are going to complain. If you cut off a bit of somebody's ad, then you have to make good, which basically means you're going to play that ad again for free. And that costs the station, thousands and thousands of dollars for doing something like that.
So I mean, things like Armageddon Factor, it's like, you may have 5.5 episodes worth of story. You've got to make it 6. Forget all this luxury of streaming where it's like, well, this week we'll have this length and then next week we'll have this length.
True.
Yeah.
It's early days of television were very structured just because you had to get those ads in, you had to get the program in, and people didn't have uh, TiVo or DVRs to go back and rewatch that or to do anything else, so that you had to make sure that that it aired in completion, because it was very likely it wouldn't be re-aired again for some time.
Yeah. And I mean, it was obviously editing was a lot harder back
Oh yeah.
then.
Yeah. Oh yeah, because you were doing it in film.
Yeah, so it was film or video.
Or videotape.
Yeah, videotape. So actually getting the timing in, editing video, without the aid of
Yes.
a computer or whatever is not easy.
No, it's not. It really requires a load of equipment, time code generators, blackburst machines, and then you're still dealing with in the early days reel to reel tape, and later on like U-matic and Beta came in and made it a little bit easier because they had their own built-in time code generators, but it was still very very tricky editing on videotape.
Yeah. I mean, this is one of the things, talking about budget, it was one of the things I was reflecting on when I was thinking about sort of which ones, my least favorite Toms, and kind of reflecting on why that's the case and whether it is because of effects or budget or whatever, or is it the story? And I think it's usually a sort of combination of the two, because quite often a story that is that's really strong but the effects are weak, the strength of the story can kind of rescue it a little bit. But then the other way around, but if you don't have a strong story and the effects are weak, then it's kind of yeah.
I know one of the ones you're talking about, and it's like, yeah. So come on, which are the ones to avoid?
Well, so I was thinking probably Underworld. Now, the thing is, actually, the first episode of Underworld is actually pretty good.
Yeah, because that's the one that got the budget.
Yeah. I mean, but also story-wise, it's actually, it's not a bad story, the first episode. And yes, they don't have the issues with the, they're having to do the overlays and onto model sets, in which they do for the remainder of the story, which just unfortunately didn't work at all.
Right.
So it kind of, the story getting weaker as it goes on, and then those effects, it just unfortunately yeah.
We're doing a marathon, we're watching all of Who in Order. I'm kind of thinking that the because you do 2 episodes tonight, the 2 days that we get to Underworld, we will be having takeout. We will be kind of giving the geckos time whilst Underworld is just on in the background.
Right. Yeah, there are a few that were really low budget, bad effects. In the run that if the story wasn't good, it was just like, well, I'll watch it, but I'm not going to watch it.
Exactly.
Although still one of my favorites is one of the ones I think is the goofiest looking is the Pirate Planet.
The thing is, I think that's again the case of the story's actually really strong. Or the script
the story was great,
strong.
and it let me kind of override my dislike for the effects and everything, because the story was really fun and it was
exactly good. And I think that's, it's kind of a mix. There are some really awful ones, but the problem is it's like not all the time, whereas like Underworld, it's like pretty much all the time.
That one's pretty
that's one of those learning exercises that's like, did you have to inflict it on the public as well? Couldn't you have done that as an in-house training video?
Right.
Do you know the talking book of Pirate Planet lasts 11 hours?
Oh my goodness. Really?
Yeah.
Oh wow.
Yeah.
And then, so the others, I was thinking about it. I'm not too keen on Revenge of the Cybermen. I think the story's pretty weak. There are some dodgy effects. I mean, they reuse the sets, from Ark, So that's it's they've got those, which is nice, but then and the Cybermen just
planet.
Yeah. The Cybermen just I don't find threatening in it. It's kind of just like okay, and then sort of linked to that, same period as Sontaran experiment. There's nothing wrong with it really, but it's just a bit dull.
And it's got that robot. I'm sorry, but it's got.
And then
I mean, there've been some really great robots in Doctor Who, but that was not really one of them. You've got K9, you've got the robot from the first episodes of the Fourth Doctor.
Yeah, you'll
Those
notice
are really
that the good robots have had multiple models of them re-released over the years.
Oh yeah,
the one from Sontaran Experiment has never come out as a figure.
Wonder why.
Yeah.
But let's face it, Tom was high off his tits on painkillers for most of that filming.
That's true. Yeah.
Right.
Because he broke his collarbone doing it.
Oh, that is a very painful break.
And they were filming miles from anywhere. His scarf got used as a sling.
Well, I mean, there was plenty of it.
Yeah.
It's interesting because then another one that's kind of, a little bit potentially ropey is the Invasion of Time, which the Vardens...
the tinfoil of terror, yeah.
Yeah. But B, it's kind of... Because James, you'll know better, the sort of... What was the sort of... There was issues with writing of that one, wasn't there?
It's very strange. The ones that you've picked up on, and say kind of because we were chatting about this earlier, and I very deliberately didn't say anything. Revenge of the Cybermen got massively rewritten. And Big Finish have actually released the kind of the original Return of the Cybermen. It's got a very similar plot, but significant differences. And yes, that one had writing problems. Invasion of Time, my God, the fact it even got made was a miracle. So not only was it a last-minute replacement for a story that is allegedly called The Killer Cats of Ginseng. And I'm not
I do like that title.
And I'm not saying
that
the writer didn't know what the limitations of Doctor Who were, but it's rumoured, because the script, I don't think ever got written fully, and kind of like production documentation is a bit scarce. Apparently the finale took place in like kind of like a Wembley Stadium full of human cats fighting and stuff. It's like...
Yeah, that's a little bit too out of the budget for a 25-minute show.
So I had to rewrite it in an emergency. And then there were production. I think it was a strike going on. Because if you watch it carefully, and actually you two really will be very good at this, watch the difference in picture quality. Because normally, there are bits that are filmed in studio, and then there are bits that are filmed kind of on OB type stuff, and they look very different.
Yeah. Because
there were strikes and all kinds of production issues, half the stuff that you would expect to be filmed in studio is actually filmed on OB. Right. And so you've got some very strange looking kind of visuals. And then, they had this big chase through the interior of the TARDIS. Oh, we haven't got a TARDIS let's just film it in the local hospital. Let's...
climb through a swimming pool, an empty swimming pool, several times.
So it's very strange that the ones you picked up on were ones that had troubled writing histories.
Interesting.
And I think, sadly, although the writing is a bit more stable in Tom's era, the ones where there were problems and got replaced at the last minute, it shows.
Yes. Well, the writing was more stable, but luckily Tom wasn't.
I was just thinking, though, with that, then it's also interesting when you look at City of Death, which is considered like sort of a masterpiece, when there were lots of writing issues around that, weren't there?
Yeah, and I hate the bloody story. I've never understood the appeal of City of Death. Sorry if you're a City of Death fan. I know that there are several of you out there, but yeah, Please don't make me watch shitty.
Shitty of Death.
Yeah.
I
Sean
do like
Connery,
it. I think it is a bit overrated, but I do like it.
One of the things, it's let down by the fact that it's a 4-parter. It should have been a 3-parter. Should have been much tighter. And they went to Paris, and so therefore they got about 2/3 of an episode worth of them running around Paris with no advancement to the plot.
It is very aesthetic, when you have Tom and Lala running through Paris. It is, you kind of like, you're okay, this is padding, this is okay. Actually, you can get away with it.
Right. Well, and at a time when everybody's dream was to go to Paris on vacation. So, that is the peak era of Paris as a, exotic vacation spot for most.
Your pronunciation, was that peak era, as in window of time, or peak era, as in cock-up? Because quite frankly...
a little of both, probably. Because a lot of people who did make it to Paris were like, okay, this looks nothing like the postcards and media portrayal of the city.
There's a fantastic thing if you go to go back a decade and go to the 60s TV series, the company called ITC, who did the Champions, Randall and Hopkirk, the Event, all that kind of.
Yeah.
If you had an episode that was set in Paris, it was compulsory that no matter where the action was taking place, the Eiffel Tower was in the background.
Well, yes, that's the only way you could tell it's Paris.
But it's one of those things like, you would have them in location one. The Eiffel Tower was in the background, but they only had like 2 bits of stock footage of Eiffel Tower. So no matter where they were, it was the same.
What's hilarious is that persists on to today. Like even like I just rewatched Tomorrowland with George Clooney, and it's based on the Tomorrowland in Disneyland type thing. As a secret city that that nobody can see without like a special little badge, and it's it was supposed to be a mecca for all inventors and scientists and stuff, and of course it went wrong. But the emergency ship to Tomorrowland was actually in the Eiffel Tower, of course.
Please tell me it did the Thunderbirds thing of folding down into 4 bits and the rocket coming up through the.
Oh, it's split and the rocket comes up through the like I think it splits about halfway down the tower, and so it splits and comes out into like 2 forks.
Alex, we're crossing off Paris for next year's holiday destination.
It's just like you could have picked anywhere else, but you picked Paris. Okay.
Revenge of the Cybermen had writing issues. Invasion of Time had writing issues. Sontarix went, it's just dull.
Yeah.
Any others?
So the other one that people talk about often, is sort of least favourite Tom, is Meglos.
Would you like a genuine fact about how bad Meglos is?
Go on.
I've watched it. It's pretty bad.
Episode 4 holds the record for the least amount of new footage in a Doctor Who episode. The episode is so short and the recap at the start is so long that there is little over 15 minutes of actual episode.
Oh, wow.
It's such a shame.
I seem to remember that.
It's a shame, particularly when you've got Jacqueline Hill, in it. It's just such a shame that it's such a poor story.
Yeah. They also, on original broadcast, played the closing music at the wrong speed for one of the episodes. So if you ever get the chance to watch an off-air copy of Meglos from original broadcast, the closing music is now in a minor key.
Oh, jeez. Well, again, like I said, that's the challenges of editing in those eras.
Yeah.
It's really a lot of work, and if you screw it up, sometimes it's got to go out that way.
I mean,
that's called Doctor Who from 1963 to 1989.
Maybe a little farther than that too.
Yeah.
I mean, given it's season 18, isn't it, Meglos?
Yeah.
Yeah. So,
Yeah.
I mean, given, I think that's the only real sort of, dud, as it were, in that season for me.
Oh yeah, I'd say season 18 is a really strong season.
Yeah.
Which is bizarre
Yeah,
because it's got terrible ratings. Seriously, season 18
Yeah.
ends with literally half the ratings that Tom Era's started with.
Wow.
Yeah.
That is odd because it was a fairly good season. Yeah.
And I suppose it was the style was quite a big departure from the style that had been going on. So I
That was
don't know whether
John
that had
Nathan
anything to do
Turner
with
and the
it.
New Broom, wasn't it?
Yeah.
New producer, brought in new music, new titles, new everything.
Yeah.
Yeah. I can't remember. Is that the season that Tom changed to the
burgundy costume?
plum? Yes.
Yeah.
Which I absolutely hate. I hate that costume.
I mean, I don't mind it, but it's just
I just don't like it.
Yeah.
I don't like it. It first of all, it doesn't really suit Tom. It's the color is just not great on him as an all over. Like I realize his first jacket from like early episodes was a burgundy kind of plum jacket, but it was not like everything burgundy just is too much. He looks like a grape.
Well, he is drinking most of them.
Well, true. Maybe they thought if he spills on this, it won't show.
I mean, the other thing to realize, apart from the fact he was going through an interesting relationship with Lalla Ward during season 18,
right?
He was really ill.
Yeah,
they had to perm his hair because basically he was so ill it had gone straight.
Oh wow.
And you watch, I think it's State of Decay, and yeah, he is thin, he is gaunt, and you can tell, it's like, whoa,
There's a different. He looks older, much like the difference between the seasons. You actually he just looks older.
Yeah,
as you say, there's more. Like he's quite gaunt, and yeah, he is very noticeable.
You got to wonder. I mean, say we talk about the classic era of TV, and Eric and I were chatting about this earlier. I mean, okay, we talk about it being a 7-year run, but of course, his first season was 20 episodes. Most were 26, but there was another 20 episoder in there. It's like, compared to the 40-something weeks that Hartnell was on the air for and Troughton was on the air for,
right?
But because production styles have changed, were those 20 episodes kind of more energy draining than doing the 40, because you didn't have location stuff for Hartnell as much, you didn't have kind of intense effects to line up, it's
and it was shot as live effectively, so it wasn't like retaking. And
I don't know, but yeah, we did. I mean, we've all seen the toll it took on Hartnell.
Yeah,
that shooting schedule was just brutal for a man his age.
Troughton demanded a reduction in the shooting schedule.
As well he should have.
Yeah, so it's difficult to know kind of how much of that illness was because of 7 years of more difficult shooting compared to 3 years of kind of longer but maybe easier. I don't know. It's difficult.
Yeah.
It is really difficult, and you don't know if you weren't there.
No, exactly. And
that's the thing.
I wonder also whether it's, if you compare the number of companions he had at different points, whether because that meant that there could be more scenes without the Doctor, or things like that. Early seasons, obviously, there was a lot more companions. Majority of Tom's era, he was one companion,
right?
Yeah, it's I say, unless you're there, it's very difficult. But the fact that we are here, and the fact that kind of we've got an extended universe, is down to Tom.
Right.
It's one of these things. Again, people seem to, because you got this kind of weird window of the 80s where there isn't so much of an extended universe.
Yeah.
1976, Tom became the first Doctor to do non-TV stories. He did 2. He did the Pescatons for LP, which was him reunited with Liz Sladen, even though she had left. And he even did an educational episode of Doctor Who called Exploration Earth. So kind of, along with the comic strips and stuff, which are seen as one of the golden eras of comic strips for Doctor Who, to the extent that kind of like they've remade the Star Beast for TV and on audio. Right. He was massive as the Doctor, kind of as the expanded universe. Pescatons was seen as an experiment. Didn't work then, but kind of like you look at what's happened with Doctor Who audios now. And he's a cunning bugger. Because thanks to the way he kind of took his holidays from Doctor Who, he's managed to play the Doctor in every single decade since the 1970s. So he got his run on TV, just extended into 1980 and 1981. So he kind of steals the 80s kind of that way. And it's very interesting that, as you said, he's looking much older and gone. His career after Doctor Who, because basically no one wanted the Doctor.
No, he's typecast. I mean, he tried pretty much permanently.
He tried playing Sherlock Holmes on TV.
Yeah. I did catch a few minutes of that and was like, ooh, this is worse than Cumberbatch.
Yeah. So basically, for the 80s, he didn't exactly disappear, but he became very reclusive. But as I say, he got the 80s on his CV because he was still technically the Doctor in the 80s. And then in the 90s, Doctor Who is off the air. And suddenly the people are going, oh shit, we want some Doctor Who.
Yeah. Well, it's off the air for you guys.
No, as in not being made.
Right. But for us, we were just seeing some of the first episodes from that.
And Tom nearly killed the revival in the 90s.
Yeah.
Well, not Tom, but everyone else's response to Tom. So, Alex, have you heard of Lost in the Dark Dimension?
Heard of it.
Right.
Yeah, and I haven't.
You haven't, right. Okay.
Right.
So this is the first of many attempts to bring Doctor Who back. And bizarrely, nearly all of them are going to involve Tom Baker. 1993, the 30th anniversary of Doctor Who. And it's been off the air since 1989. Books are coming out. They've just started bringing out some with past Doctors. Tom's Doctor was in the second one that came out. And the BBC said, right, we're going to do a big 30th anniversary drama. We'll celebrate, celebrating Doctor Who. We'll have all the living Doctors in there, and and they got the script commissioned, called Lost in the Dark Dimension, by a guy called Adrian Rigglesford, I believe. And the official line is that they left it too late to be able to do it justice. To do like a 90-minute TV movie with effects and everything. The reality is, it featured all of the living Doctors. Well, Tom was in 85 minutes of it. The other ones were in like the last 5. Yeah. There is a very strong rumour that has been repeated occasionally by certain actors, also called Baker, but the first name is Colin.
Right.
That they were shown the script, and all the ones who weren't Tom went, where are we?
Yeah. Well, why'd you even invite us to see the script?
Yeah. The rumour is that basically it was like 6 of one, half dozen the other, that they had this script. It had potential. It would have had the Brigadier in it. Rumour has it would have had the Queen exterminated by Daleks. But not enough time to film it, not the budget, and justifiably, John, who was still alive at the time, Peter, Colin, and Sylvester were a little bit pissed at just like how little they were in it.
Oh, you think?
Tom is the one that people associated with the Doctor most.
Yeah.
But that's still no reason to kind of write the others out of it.
No. I mean, especially because while Tom is a great doctor, he is not the only doctor.
Yeah.
I mean, there were some fantastic stories pre-Fourth, and there have been some fantastic stories post-Fourth.
So, going back to something that was discussed in the last episode, the replacement for Lost in the Dark Dimension. Go on, Alex.
Dimensions in Time.
Dimensions in Time. Thank you for wincing as you said it. That's the correct response.
I did find watching it in VR almost sort of replicates the feeling that they were trying to go for. So I watched it on my Quest, and it was not as weird as watching it on a flat screen. Because I rewatched it on the flat screen, and it was just not. It didn't quite, have the same kind of effect.
But say it was at least Tom's return to the role,
right?
And actually, this gets kind of. There's a lot of stories floating around about the 90s. 90s are a very strange decade. Doctor Who isn't being...
You're telling me.
Okay, in terms of Doctor Who, the 90s are a very strange decade.
All right.
There's a computer game that comes out called Destiny of the Doctors. It's shit.
Most video games in the 90s were.
Yeah. No. This was a video game of the 90s that looked like it was done with 80s technology. But
like most video games at the time. They weren't spending a lot on video games in the 90s, really.
Bearing in mind you had things like the Doom engine and the Quake engine floating around.
Yeah, but they were not sharing that around like they do now.
But Tom, again, actually returned to do voiceover roles for it. So he kind of, was keeping his hand in. And again, the rumour, and say no one really knows the truth about this, is that the second attempt to get Doctor Who back as a permanent thing in the 90s came about because of John Pertwee.
Oh.
So, also in 93, the BBC Radio broadcast a third Doctor story called The Paradise of Death. It had a sequel. It was good enough to justify a sequel called The Ghosts of N-Space. And that was also John Pertwee. And then two things happened. John Pertwee passed away, and people heard Ghosts of N-Space. But with the passing of John Pertwee, they said, well, actually, this has got legs, because there were various issues with the broadcast of it, and they were flooded with complaints. It's like, shit, people are actually listening to Doctor Who on the radio. What's going on? And so they thought, well, how about we get Tom back? And the plan was that Tom would be paired up with Sarah Jane for a brand new radio series of adventures.
Nice.
Then McGann happened, and that got started.
Yeah.
So Tom took another one of his holidays. Although, in character, not in the scarf and the suit, but he did do linking narration in 1997 for the VHS release of Sharda. Sharda is now, like Genesis of the Daleks, one of the most overly completed, incomplete stories ever.
Yeah. I've seen several versions of it.
The talking book of that's only about 12 hours, don't worry.
Well, it might be better than the pieced together versions that I've seen. So
we'll get to those in a bit. So basically, 97, the BBC finally released Sharda on VHS with Tom doing linking narration. And it goes down really well. He's loved again. So he takes another holiday. He does some links for a Doctor Who night in 1999. He pops up on interviews for the 40th and stuff like that.
Right.
But basically, through 2000 through to virtually the end of the decade, Tom doesn't do anything. Then he thinks, I haven't done anything this decade. So he does 5 CDs worth of Doctor Who audio dramas with the BBC. Not with Big Finish, but with the BBC.
Right.
There is a very different tone to them, very different production values. But yeah, 2009, Tom sneaks in another decade where he's played the Doctor. And they actually end up making 15-hour-long episodes of this stuff. It's just come out again, I believe, on LP. It's called The Nest Cottage Chronicles. And basically, it's the Fourth Doctor, Captain Mike Yates, who was actually a Third Doctor character, but we will... oh, what the hell? They offered it allegedly to Nicholas Courtney as the Brigadier, who took one look at the script and said, "Fuck you." Richard Franklin, playing Mike Yates, allegedly was a little bit short of money, so said, "Oh, yes, please." You can tell that the early ones are written for the Brigadier, but the later ones become very much Mike Yates ones.
Okay.
And he gets an extra companion called Mrs. Wibsey.
All right.
First
I've heard of her.
Yeah, one of many, many, many new companions that Tom has picked up over the years. So he snuck in the 2000s, and then, of course, he realizes, oh, I've missed doing this. And Big Finish get him back.
Right.
And basically, yeah, Big Finish. I think we are now almost at the end of the stuff that they have publicly admitted to having recorded with him. They finished recording with him many years ago, but they've been eking out the releases.
Well, and editing that does take time.
Yeah. And also it's Tom. He was in his mid-80s. Very well preserved by Gin. But, yeah. First few seasons are a bit light and fluffy. There are a couple of running arcs through them. I'm not saying that they're my favourite ones, but they do involve the actor David Warner, who can do no wrong. David Warner, who has now played the baddie in a Fourth Doctor big story arc, played a Russian good guy on TV in Doctor Who, and played the Doctor in about 25 episodes of special Doctor Who's. Yeah, that's kind of ticking every box. Baddie, goodie, Doctor.
Yeah.
But they realised that they had to do a bit more with it. There is an entire new season slotted in between Invasion of Time and the Key to Time season, where he gets a new companion called Anne Kelso.
Okay.
But there is a twist, and I'm not going to spoil that one because I bloody did not see that coming when I first heard them.
Well, we'll just have to check it out.
I would very strongly recommend that season because, yes, it goes places that you think, oh, huh?
Nice.
And the companion, and actually, let's just say that there is another range of box sets which the companion is kind of in as well, but I cannot say any more until you've heard those ones. He's gained other companions with Big Finish. He travelled with Margaret, played by the fantastic actress called Nerys Hughes. They paired her with Leela. Basically, imagine pairing a granny with Leela.
Oh, that's an interesting combination.
It works perfectly. It is really good. And they have brought back Harry Sullivan as a companion. They've done 3 boxes of Harry Sullivan and Fourth Doctor stories.
Nice.
They have done lost stories that were written that then got cancelled because they involved not quite 15,000 cats in a Wembley Stadium type thing, but lots that were... They got to the kind of like the draft stage sort of thing, and they've come out as well. And yeah, it's going to be interesting to see where Fourth Doctor goes next. They are keeping a bit stum on that, but then again, that's probably because they haven't recorded it yet.
Well, and thankfully, there are several really good voice actors who can voice Tom when his eventual demise does take us.
Don't suggest John Coleshaw.
No, but there are several others.
Because John Coleshaw, has done all the Dead Ringers Toms.
Well, I mean, he's fantastic as a comedic
Tom.
foil. Yes, but I've heard other voice actors who can pretty well nail Tom's intonation and speech patterns, and there's some hope that we can continue to have Fourth Doctor audio dramas for quite a while.
Alex, what's your thoughts on recasting?
I do quite like the approach that Big Finish have been taking in recent years of actually getting relatives of, actors. to play parts, because although their voice isn't exactly the same, they're kind of certain intonations and things like that are
right, because they've
closer.
lived with them.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's
And
why I
they're
really wish
genetically
Sean would.
related, and it's kind of
Yeah,
like Liz Sladen's daughter.
yeah,
I think, and I'm not sure how much of it is getting used to listening to them and how much of it them getting better at doing them. So I do find that I tend to, at first I'm a bit like, oh, it's a bit jarring, but then you kind of get used to it. But then also I think they might be getting better at it as well.
right.
And also, I think Big Finish are learning to write for those slight differences.
Right.
It's a strange one. I'd say I would agree with you.
Yeah, I do wish Sean would change his mind about reprising his dad's role.
Tim Trelaw has come a long way in doing the Third Doctor, though.
Yeah, but I mean, Sean is such a I met him at Comic-Con here in Portland, and he is such a really genuinely nice person to meet in person. And he does remind me so much of his dad.
So, are we ready for our final of the 3 delves into Big Finish?
Oh yes, it's time for Who Knows Trivia,
because Tom is going to be our lead-in point for this.
Oh yay!
Yeah,
excellent.
Because Tom has cropped up in a lot of them.
That's a good job that I chose Tom for this episode.
Big Finish. Okay, so in the first part of these, we went through the kind of like the main Doctor-based ranges and stuff like that. Gave you my recommendations last time, but Big Finish have dipped their toes in many other Doctor Who pools. And it is great fun when they do mix and match. So if you are, if you've kind of done the first 50 on Spotify, and there's Tom's on Spotify as well.
Right.
There's all kinds of things on Spotify for Doctor Who. And you think, actually, audio dramas are pretty decent, because, you don't have those dodgy effects,
Yeah.
They record the drama over 2 days. So it's not like an intense week of filming with
Right.
And they realised fairly swiftly that there was more to Doctor Who than the Doctor. And although their initial dabblings with spin-offs were inevitably around the Daleks and the Cybermen, the one that kick-started them as the spin-off company was a spin-off from a Tom Baker story. Talons of Weng-Chiang.
Oh, yeah.
Although they only actually meet, it's either in episode 5 or episode 6. They hardly got any screen time together. Jago and Lightfoot were a hit with the public. There was talk at the time of them getting a spin-off series. They did a kind of an experimental 1-disc, 2 regular length, 25-minute type thing with them. And then thought, the public love this.
Yeah.
They managed to do 14 box sets of Jago and Lightfoot dramas before, sadly, we lost the actor who played Lightfoot. But as you can imagine, they were quite old when they were in Talons of Weng-Chiang.
Right.
And it is the perils that Big Finish face. Tom is now 90.
Yes.
The others are in their 70s. McGann has just turned 65.
Yeah.
And you look at the companions. So they thought, okay, we've done Jago and Lightfoot. They're brilliant, by the way. They are the most civilized, relaxed listens I can think of. I love them. They are imaginative. They are creative. And they're just 2 doddery old men solving cases with vampires and time travel and
so
disco.
Statler and Waldorf, but not grumpy.
No, they're grumpy, and they drink a lot. Okay. And
so Statler and Waldorf.
Basically, there's 14 boxes of them. I think from memory, the first couple might even be on Spotify. I don't guarantee that because, of course, Spotify streaming, they can remove whatever they like at whatever time.
Right. Well, it's like any streaming platform; they lose licenses and then regain.
But if you want to hear a range that really develops its characters, develops its themes and everything over 14 blissfully brilliant boxes, Jago and Lightfoot.
Oh,
and you get guest stars cameos, say, from Leela.
Nice.
The Doctor crops up in them from time to time. Just not necessarily the Doctor either you or they are expecting. And in return,
that's the beauty of the
and
Doctor.
in return,
It
Jago
can
and
be
Lightfoot crop up
any
in the
version
Fourth
of him
Doctor audios.
or her.
But they did realise that we need to start recording with some younger people.
Right.
Unit have had a really strong run of releases.
Well, yeah. I mean, it's a fantastic vehicle for stories.
Yeah. And basically, kind of like, there's a couple of early releases which are kind of like pre-revival series anyway, and they're quite fun. But then, once Kate Lethbridge-Stewart turns up on TV, they realise, we can use Kate. And they set up their own version of Unit. So you've got Osgood in there, but that's basically kind of Kate and Osgood are the main ones from the TV.
Right.
You have got some fantastic new characters in there. You have got returns of all kinds of monsters, and they're a brilliant one for they're tidying up the loose plot lines from the TV series. They're bringing in kind of characters from elsewhere, because along with the Doctor, there are box sets for the Master, also for the Master in a different body, and also for the Master in a different body.
In a different body.
So far, the Eric Roberts Master has had box sets. My God, that's a man who can choose scenery even on audio. Missy has had box sets. The Sacha Darwin Master has got box sets coming out next year. The Derek Jacobi Master had a huge range of box sets. They've done brilliant things with the Master. They've matched the tone of each series to the incarnation. The Missy ones are really... They are like kind of twisted versions of Mary Poppins and all kinds of things. Yeah. So if you're a new series fan, things like Unit are a great way to get into audio dramas and get introduced to some of the older characters, older monsters and stuff like that. And there are box sets featuring Sea Levels and Silurians. So War Against Land and Sea is a great one coming up. So that's a great pre-listening exercise. The Paternoster Gang. They haven't been in TV for a while, but you've got, Madame Vastra, Strax, and you've got Jenny. They did 4 boxes. They took a long break from it, but they've now started up again.
Oh, great.
We'll listen to those soon. I keep meaning to bring them down. And guess what? Tom turns up in one of those as well.
Oh, excellent.
But again, it's a very good way for Big Finish to take characters that kind of were very secondary on the screen and give them an actual existence. Big Finish are brilliant at world building. So there's a lot in there where there's kind of like new series ones. And even characters that you wouldn't think would get their own series. Jenny, she was in 1 episode.
Right.
Her 3rd box set is about to come out.
Oh, jeez.
Lady Christina, sorry. I think 3 boxes have now come out. They're brilliant.
Excellent.
And they cross over with the Unit ones, which also tie in with the 9th Doctor ones. Basically, these, where they pick up with these kind of like minor characters, they're great because they tie them together and they really make it feel like an expanded universe proper.
Right.
But the mother of them all, if you think Doctor Who gets complicated, Alex, what do you reckon I'm going to go for?
No.
Torchwood.
Oh, well, yeah. I mean, there is a very complicated
Torchwood
history with Torchwood. Yes.
You've got 2 BBC series of 13 episodes.
Yes.
You've then got a BBC feature series of 5 episodes.
Mm-hmm.
And then you've got the American series of 10. And then it ended.
Right.
Well, then Big Finish got involved. And I'm not saying that Torchwood is now its own universe, but there isn't just one Torchwood range.
Oh.
So, to finish with, because I think this is, again, a very good way of kind of getting into audio dramas with a familiar hook, but with a much wider scope than Doctor Who could ever have, is the Torchwood range.
Right.
So, range number 1 is the main range. It's kind of like the original monthly sort of range that the Who releases had, but monthly, yeah. Anyway, there's about 80 of those now.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. And the majority feature characters from the TV series. So you got Yanto, you got Tosh, you've got Owen, you've got Gwen, you know. But then what they did was they said, oh, do you know what? We had 4 series of Torchwood on TV. Kind of ended on a very downbeat thing.
Well, yeah, I mean, the death of Yanto hurt a lot of people, severely.
So they then actually did official continuations. There are now 3 series that follow on from those TV episodes.
Oh, wow, okay.
Gods Among Us, Aliens Among Us, and Among Us. Listen to them in the right order, though, because they form a huge storyline across the 3 seasons.
Cool.
As part of Torchwood, they also thought, you know what? Those Doctor Who ones we did, where we featured the baddies as the kind of central characters, they seem to have gone down quite well. Let's do some Torchwood ones where the bastards are the main characters. And although the actor passed away very recently, there's a handful of them with Billis Manger from the original series of Torchwood, which are brilliant. They've taken a slightly ambiguous character and made him very grey indeed. Grey. There's an R in there. Unlike the rest of Torchwood, where they've made very... Anyway.
Gay with no R. Yes.
As part of those 3 seasons, they invented new characters who have now also done their own main range audios. There's a kind of like a mini season spread out through the main range where a new character called Mr. Colchester has a series of adventures with someone who we've never ever discussed, Ace!
Oh, yay!
She's in. Ace is now in the Torchwood audios.
Excellent.
As is Martha. As is Sergeant Andy. Oh, if you want the light-hearted ones,
yes,
Sergeant Andy audios, because basically he's nearly always partnered with Owen until they invent a new character. The character appeared in the Sergeant Andy one. He was so popular that Andy and this character now have their own spin-off series.
Oh, sweet.
It's called Torchwood Soho.
Oh, nice.
And it's set in 1950s and the modern day and all over the place.
Well, I mean,
and
it wouldn't be Doctor Who related without time travel.
Oh, God. The fact that Andy ends up spending most of the first series of his spin-off naked is neither here nor there. Just a very pleasant surprise for his gay colleague.
Hold on, I'm writing this down.
Yanto has his own spin-off series called Torchwood 1.
Excellent.
Which is set before the events of Torchwood on TV.
Right.
You have various special releases of Torchwood being done for anniversaries and stuff like that. And, yeah, the way that you've got to approach the Torchwood, though, it's kind of got like Doctor Who. You know, when you've got 80 main range stories, you've got spin-off series, you've got this follow-on series, you've got this kind of sub-series, Really, Torchwood is now kind of like an anthology series.
Right.
If you've got Gods Among Us or Aliens Among Us or Among Us, they are a story.
Right.
But the main range, really, just listen to them as kind of like anthologies featuring the characters. Don't try and worry too much about the continuity or where they are in the characters' lives.
Well, I mean, you have to do that with extended universe stuff. You really just got to say, I'm going to take this as a story. I'm not going to, impose my views of what the original series, was on it, because if you do that, you'll just ruin it for yourself.
But say Torchwood is one of those ranges which is a spin-off from Doctor Who. It's got its own continuity now, but it's got the ethos of Doctor Who in that some of the releases leave you in tears of laughter.
Yep.
Some of them will have you losing your lunch. Some of them are. There's one called. I think it's called. Look behind you. I've forgotten the name. I've got through an hour and 10 without brain fog, and I've just forgotten the bloody name of it. There's one, basically a ghost one set in a seaside town, which is really creepy. And it's a lovely way to see how, you can go from Doctor Who, which is your nice familiar stuff, and open your brain up to the wonders of audio drama. Because over the last this one and the last 2 episodes, I cannot praise audio Doctor Who enough.
No, they're fantastic. And I have listened to a couple of the episodes of the Torchwood Big Finish stuff, and they are fantastic.
Yeah.
They're really well done.
There's a few early ones where they haven't quite got it right.
No, but they really do take you on a fun journey. Like I said, sometimes scary, sometimes
if you
teary.
want a journey that is not fun, Office of No Return. And the ending of that will make you rethink I can't say what, because that would be a spoiler.
Spoilers.
Yeah, but trust me, that one will make you see a character in a very different light.
Speaking of spoilers, I know in the extended universe, Tom is one of the first, the fourth Doctor is one of the first Doctors who realizes that River Song is his wife.
Oh yeah, in the River Song.
Yes.
Yeah. Keeping my own personal feelings about River Song aside,
right?
There is, in the early River Song boxes, she meets most of the previous Doctors.
Yes,
and there is one where basically River marches in, does her usual, you don't know who I am. And Tom turns around and goes, hello, sweetie.
Yes.
And completely...
I married you, yeah.
Yeah, completely pulls the rug from under River Song, and yes.
Right. That I was reading about that, and I was like, oh, yeah, it's great that she finally gets the rug pulled up from under her.
Yeah, and of all the Doctors to do it, it had to be Tom.
Mm-hmm.
How they resolve that, though, to keep the continuity of River Song and the Doctor, you would have to listen.
Yeah, well, I mean, that's a complicated affair to begin with.
By the way, there is a new River Song box, either just out or coming out, set after River Song's death.
Oh,
okay.
But then again, this is River Song, so you'd expect it.
Yeah, you never count her out until the very end, because she usually does show up just fine at the end.
And on the Big Finish website, there is even, when the website works, where they've had a few problems, but never mind. There is even a Big Finish for free section where they have got complete stories that they're giving away, extracts. What they do quite often is, where a box set has got 4 linked discs in it, they'll give the first disc away free, because they're bastards.
Well, I mean, drug dealers have been doing that for ages.
Going back to Nightmare of Eden.
Yeah.
Right.
Really, though, Spotify has got so much on there. Big Finish for free. Dive in, because they have now been going 25 years. You can't possibly start at the beginning and work it all out.
No.
Right.
Just throw yourself in, and wherever
I mean, that's the nice thing about extended universe stuff, is you can jump in pretty much anywhere you want to, and swim around and enjoy it.
The other great thing is, there will be people out there who will not shut up when you say, could you just explain the background of this story to me? Alex has now been living with one of them for 23 years.
And I've been best friends with one of them for
27
years, yes. So, yes, we have been living with this This
monster.
Oracle of Who, yes.
Alex and I met at a Doctor Who event.
Well, I mean,
Yeah.
you and I got together because
Doctor Who.
of Doctor Who.
And
we became pen pals on the internet.
I've just recorded, or I've just started recording an audio drama for an amateur group again for Doctor Who. So kind of
nice.
There's so much out there. Dive in. And if you don't like it, trust me, there's tons of other stuff that you will.
Right. You just switch to another storyline.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, I think that's it. I think we've done it. Thanks for joining us for another journey through time and space with the Doctor. Remember, you can support the show by liking and subscribing on YouTube or subscribing on Buzzsprout for as little as $3 a month. You can send us an email at 3dowho@gmail.com or a text from 3dowho.buzzsprout.com. The link is at the top of every episode's show notes. Follow us on Bluesky, 3dowho.bsky.social. We're also now on Facebook, which the Facebook page is actually taking up some traction. So I'm kind of encouraged by that. But as the U.S. elections are right after this episode drops, I'm hoping this quote by the Fourth Doctor proves prescient as we vote to rid ourselves of the Orange Menace. That's the empty rhetoric of a defeated dictator, and I don't like your face either. James, any final words?
Where are we going next? Because after what can you follow Tom with?
Ooh, that is really tough. I think let's go a little bit further forward. Let's talk about the Ninth Doctor next time.
Good choice.
Yes, because we've kind of avoided him, and he's a little bit less, of an expanded character.
Well, now.
Well,
now, a lot more
he's
now.
Expanded now, but during the first few years after the Ninth Doctor left, there was very little to do with him.
We'll have the lawyers on hand to make sure we don't say anything we shouldn't.
Right, because Christopher is a little bit.
I wasn't thinking of Eccleston. I was thinking of Noel Clarke, John Barrymore.
Oh yeah, well there's that too.
Yeah, we shall focus on the positive.
Yes, let's focus on the positive. But let's do the Ninth Doctor. Yeah. I know Mike is a fan, and I'm a fan. I know you are a fan as well.
And Alex, thank you for doing this, because I know
this pleasure.
was the look of horror on your face when I asked you. It's like, would you be on a podcast with me?
Well, I mean, the good thing about all the podcasts we do on Injured Nerves Productions is we try to just make them like a sit down with your friends and enjoy, an interesting discussion. We don't try to make them like, overly produced.
Well, Alex and I are now going to sit down and enjoy a chicken.
Yay! I am going to probably order a burger and sit down and enjoy that.
Oh yeah, we should probably order some food as well.
Oh.
Oh dear.
Should we leave it on that note?
It's a good thing I'm wearing this shirt today. So I'm in the proper mood for those kind of jokes. Oh, and Alex, again, thanks for stepping in and filling Mike's place this month's episode. Is there anything else you'd like to say to the audience?
I don't think so. Just it's been a pleasure, and hopefully I'll be here again at some point.
Yeah, actually, Mike goes off and does exciting things now that he's retired. So there will be plentiful opportunities for guest star spots. Yes.